So about 2 weeks ago, I had what every contractor dreads, and that is somebody break into my truck by smashing the side window on the camper shell and stealing some tools. They only had about 10 seconds to operate after they broke it because my alarm went off. I pushed my window open from my bedroom and yelled at them, and they were gone. But they got about $200 worth of tools in the meantime. Pardon me, I live on a pretty busy street. And they did that by breaking this side window. And I had worried about people doing that for a long time. And in fact, I had accidentally broken the back window on my truck shell a couple of years ago. And I figured I had to replace it. I would replace it with aluminum. So this is a sheet of 6061 T6 aluminum cut to size with a good strong latching mechanism in place. And I thought about doing that to my side windows also. But I put it off, and I put it off too long, and I got broken into. So what I've done is I went to a local plastic place and I had them cut to size and shape a piece of polycarbonate that fits into the frame of this window perfectly. And I'm going to put that in, and I'll show you what I went through. I'm not going to go into great detail because I hate videos that show people doing tasks that are like, okay, take out 30 screws. No, I'm not going to do that to you. But I'll show you what I did in short chunks, just so you get the gist. By the way, I put in 3/8 inch polycarbonate, which is the same stuff that bulletproof windows are made from. And I don't know if this is going to be bulletproof, but I know that they won't be able to break through it with a rock. They won't be able to break through it with a baseball bat. And it's thick enough at 3/8 of an inch that they won't be able to push on it really hard and have it bend inward and pop into the truck, which would happen if you were to put a thinner piece of plastic in. So that's why I chose 3/8 was for the stiffness as much as anything. And 3/8 just happened to fit one of the two channels of my Lear camper shell window frame perfectly, very snugly. And that's why I went with 3/8. So anyway, I'll show you as I go along here what I got and what the process is. Here's the frame removed from the truck cap. And a couple of things you'll notice here. One is there's usually a center bar here where the two windows, one stationary back here and one that slides forward and back, meet. I removed that center bar because it was in the way of what I was doing. And the way I took it out was I just took a rubber mallet and I beat it on the top, bent it over, and I beat it at the bottom and bent it over and got it out that way. Note that when you take this window frame apart to get the old glass out, this is just one solid piece of extruded aluminum that is not broken open across the horizontal plane at all. There's no way to like separate this so that you have the channel on the outside and just pop the window in. You just have to disassemble it and pull the old glass out and put the new plastic in. Now the way you separate this, because this is just one solid piece of aluminum, long piece of aluminum that they bent probably under temperature with a jig to this shape, and they joined it at one end with this metal bar held in. I'm not sure how well you can see all this. It's a little bit dark here. This metal bar here held in with 2 screws here and 2 screws here. I didn't know that, and I just bent this thing back and forth like this until that broke. But you don't need to do that. You can just take those screws out. But it's not going to be a big issue. Anyway, when you look at this end on, you'll see that one channel is much wider than the other. And if you're going to use 3/8 thick polycarbonate like I'm using, you'll need to use the broader of the two channels rather than the narrower. You could probably get away with using something thinner if you want to, and then you might be able to use that thinner channel instead. Now, there are some pieces of plastic inside this channel. Gosh, this is really horrible. You can't, there you can see a little better there. Anyway, there's pieces of plastic inside these channels that I just removed. They're runners for the glass to fit into so that the glass is a snug fit and will slide forward and back in the case of the movable window. So just take all the stuff out that's inside this channel all the way around, and you'll be able to fit your plastic into the channel without too much trouble. This window is going to be a very snug fit in the frame, and I actually thought about not bothering with sealant, but then I decided, you know, it's way too much work to have this leak if this does leak, to take it apart and put sealant in it. So what the heck, I just went down to local auto supply place and I bought a tube of RTV silicone sealant. I got clear, they also have black. This is what I want. It'll work fine. So I'm going to put that in the window frame and then put the window in place. Okay, so I just laid a bead of silicone sealant, RTV sealant, all the way around the interior of that channel, on the very bottom of the channel. Now I'm going to put the window in. I'm going to slide it right down in. Okay, so it's in the channel. Now I'm going to take a mallet and tap the window to seat it in the bottom of that channel, to seat it in the round portion of the bottom of the channel. Doesn't take a lot. And now I'm going to take this bottom piece, and the bottom piece, I don't know, I call that the bottom piece, it goes on fairly easily compared to the top piece. Put that in place. Give it a few whacks around the perimeter to seat it. All right, remembering how I did it last time, I actually pulled this back like this until I got the plexiglass into that channel, and then I lifted up, and up, and up, and it gets pretty tight. And what I did is I took my trusty mallet and I applied pressure here and gave it some wax upward. There we go. Finally got it in place. Now that's the plexiglass in place. Works. Lexan, polycarbonate, whatever. Give it some beats all the way around. And that's it. That's the hard part, is getting this last piece on top of the plexiglass. This is the place where the window goes. You have to take out all the debris that's in this channel. You'll probably have some residual glue left in here. People who have done this before me put some silicone sealant around it, so I had to get that out. Crud cutter and things like that worked pretty well to get that out. I'm going to be laying a bead of silicone sealant along here. Follow the finger, Chuck. Follow the finger along here to seal that window into place. And I'll pop it in and I'll screw it back in from the inside. I had to decide if I wanted to paint the inside or the outside. If you want it to be glossy, then you paint the inside and leave the outside smooth. But I decided, after having seen a flat painted plastic window on another truck, that I really liked that look, so I'm going to paint the outside. And I scuff sanded this with 220 sandpaper and then cleaned it well with Windex. And now I'm going to tape it off and do it up. And I also saw a lot of scratch marks in the window from that 220, so I am going to sand it with some 400 and get some legit primer on there. White primer is down. It got a little splotchy at first. I didn't clear the head well enough. I did clear it, but not well enough. So we'll take a little sanding before I put the first color coat on. But so far so good. No bubbling, and it looks smooth. Getting a little skinny on daylight, but I've got 3 coats of paint on it now. And we'll be putting one more on before I call it a job. It's showing a little glossy right now, but it will, once it dries, be a matte finish. And I may put a couple of coats of clear matte acrylic over the top of it, or whatever it's called. But I would do a matte finish on that as well. All right, so it's the next day, and I finished the job last night, but it was too late to really get a good video of it. So ultimately what this came down to, as far as the paint goes, is I started with 220 sandpaper and then went to 400. Probably should have just started with 400, because I think there's some scratches on here that are the result of the 220, although even the 400 might be what's leaving the scratches, but they're not horrible, and they're good enough for what this truck is. And then I used Windex on it to clean it. Vacuumed off the debris first, then used Windex to clean it, and then used isopropyl alcohol to just make good and sure that I got off any oily touches that might have been on the plexiglass, or the polycarbonate, I should say. Used white primer and then sanded that down nice and smooth, then applied 4 coats of paint in fairly quick succession. less than an hour between coats per the instructions. It said either recoat within 1 hour or wait 48 hours. So I did 4 coats in pretty short order. Anyway, pleased with the results. I like that it's opaque, so people can't just look through the window and see what's inside, although that could backfire, because since I'm doing this in large part for theft protection, you know, who knows what the mind of a thief comes up with, whether they decide that you're more likely to have tools in your truck because you've got opaque windows and they're going to break in, and you know this is going to slow them down, but it isn't going to stop them. They want in, they're going to get in. So if you're thinking about doing this sort of repair, this should give you a good idea on how to handle it, and give you a sense of what the results are. So yeah, I got a little cold that I came down with since last night, so excuse the sniffles, but I'm pretty happy with it. Could be worse, could be a lot worse, could be a little better. Clear coat should make it look even nicer still. So there you go. If you're so inclined, give it a whirl. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave them on my page below, and I'll answer them when I get to them.